How's it going, everybody? Great Say Geek here, and today we're going to be talking about the first episode of season 2 of Rings of Power. I just got finished watching it. At the time of this video going up, I went through it a second time as I'm talking through this, just in case I forgot anything that I wanted to talk about, and just get a bit of a refresher, even though I just watched it. So here's the thing: before we start with this, not really so much review as really is just my thoughts. I'm not going to give a number review on any of these episodes or anything like that. It's just going to be me talking about it, sharing my thoughts on it. Whether you say you guys agree with it or not, it's really up to you. Okay, but these are my thoughts on it. Some of you may share the same opinions. Some of you may be adamantly opposed to it. Okay, and that's totally fine. But just like I mentioned in the Let's Talk About Season 2 video, okay, I did not finish the first season. Okay, after about 4 episodes, I could not stand watching it anymore and never looked back on it. Okay, I've seen a lot of reviews, about the episodes I didn't see. A lot of stuff has been out since then, right, about it. This episode did recap a little bit what kind of this, not really a synopsis, but a bit of the first season of what happened. Okay, so I'm still familiar, and I'm familiar enough with Tolkien's story of the events. Not all knowledgeable. I'm not a nerd of the rings. I'm not someone who knows a whole lot about it, or can recall on the top of my head, but I know enough to get the general idea of the story. That being said, there are a few things we're going to talk about in this episode that I'm not going to talk about in all the episodes that come out, mainly because I don't want to just beat a dead horse, so to speak. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this video is going to be what's I've been talked about, it not just in this show, but in a lot of stuff in the entertainment, and we'll kind of leave it at that, and push along in the other episodes. So another thing as well is I may not finish this show. Okay, if it gets to a point where I just find it unbearable, I will do exactly what I did in the first season. I will stop watching it. I will make a video on why I stopped watching it and that I'm not going to be watching any further episodes, because if I get it could be good YouTube content, maybe not, but it could be. But I'm not going to torture myself to watch the episodes or give them the views for it if I don't like it. So I'm going to throw this in the beginning of the video real quick before we actually start getting into everything. I was originally going to take screenshots of some of the episode so that you guys could see kind of what I'm talking about. It did not work. So I don't know how people do that, how people post screenshots of what they're seeing on the episode, but we're just gonna have to do kind of a title screen on this. So if I don't edit out properly some of the things that say, hey, this is on screen, it's not going to be on screen, just so you guys are aware of that. So if you guys want to know what I'm talking about when I say some stuff doesn't look good or things like that, you're just gonna have to watch the episode or kind of look it up. So I do apologize on that. I will try to fix that on the next episode. And try to figure something out with that. So I do apologize in advance for that. So now that that's all out of the way, let me just start by saying I'm not going to beat around the bush with it. I wasn't a big fan of this first episode. Okay, first episode of season 2, did not capture me. It did not go, you know what, the first season what I watched wasn't all that great. This is amazing. This is a turnaround. It's not. There are some things that I do like in this episode. There are a lot of things that I either not just didn't like, but didn't really understand. It had me scratching my head where I'm like, I don't think this is in Tolkien's lore. And I'm not, and by the way, I'm not a big lore buff. Okay. I'm not a book purist that thinks everything has to match to the book. I'm not. My thing is it respectful? Is it cool? Does it fit? Does it make sense? Type of thing. Okay. But I completely understand this is based off of a legendary, or I guess you say legendary material. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to kind of do like a play-by-play, not of everything, but of a lot of the stuff that happened through the episode. So the first part of this episode started out in kind of a flashback before the events of season 1, right? It takes us to Fordwaith. I probably mispronounced that. I'm terrible with some of the names in Lord of the Rings. Where Sauron, and he's taken a different form than what we know him as Halbrand from season 1. He's in a different form, and he's talking to the orcs about how Morgoth's gone. I'm your best way forward. Basically, the elves won't accept you. Men will only see you as disgusting. you guys need to follow me. And all the orcs are like pissed off, like, we don't want to follow you, basically. Like they don't like him. They don't want to follow him. An orc tries to assassinate him, which seems to be, oh, and Adar's here, which seems to be kind of like Adar's plan, like to try and assassinate him. So the orc tries, Sauron catches the dagger, kills the orc, and Adar pretends to like hail him, and yep, we're gonna follow him, and takes the crown. It's gonna crown him, flips the crown over and stabs him like in the back with it. Okay, and then all the orcs jump on Sauron and basically kill him. Okay. This whole scene, and I'll continue the scene later, but this whole scene I didn't buy. I'm like, I don't think the orcs ever did that in the lore. And I understand the orcs probably would serve Morgoth and Sauron because they really don't have a choice. But I mean, like Sauron, I like from my understanding, right, is like the chief lieutenant of Morgoth, right? Next to like Gothmog of the Lord of the Balrogs, right? Like Sauron's like the clear choice. Like, I don't know why they would follow Adar and not Sauron when Sauron is clearly more powerful than any of them in that room. But whatever. And there's probably some of like season 1 stuff and Adar backstory in the show that I just don't really care about. But anyways, they kill Sauron. He he collapses. He bleeds out, and Adar's checking him to see if he's alive, and he basically blows up. Like, flash of light comes out of his mouth, eyes. He blows up, and it freezes the whole room, and it freezes the whole area of Ordwaith, the land. Everything just gets frozen over. Okay, don't think that that's particularly how that happened or why that place is frozen, but that's how it is. His body's gone, and his blood like trickles through the stones, and you see later that he's like like this pool of blood or whatever, like it's like these worm things come out, and he's basically a symbiote. He basically turns into a symbiote. If you guys know Marvel, Venom, right? It's exactly that. It's like a symbiote. It like attacks this animal that's down there, and he crawls out of the cave and into, down the mountain, whatever. So a carriage goes by, and it runs over the symbiote, aka Sauron, symbiote Sauron, and it crawls back in. It crawls into the wagon, eats the lady or the person driving the wagon. Yeah, eats it, combines with the person, whatever, and then you get Halbrand spits out of the back of the wagon. So after that, it kind of follows Halbrand. He's walking on his path, meets a few guys, meets a bunch of people, right, that are leaving this village that's been attacked by orcs. And one of the guy that he talks to is basically like kind of like this nice, wise old man that just happens to give Sauron all this knowledge and wisdom about being good and making good choices and blah, 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 all this stuff, and convinces Sauron to, instead of going and chasing death, goes with them to a place beyond the sea, probably Numenor or something, or maybe they were trying to sell to Valinor, I'm not sure. And it kind of leads up to the beginning of season 1, how Halbrand was out in the middle of the ocean, and so he tagged along with these guys. The big fish monster came and like destroyed the ship. Sauron survives with a few people, and boom, leads into season 1. All right, so then we jump forward. It gets to the nice little title screen, and we jump forward to Galadriel chasing Elrond on their way to Gil-galad. Okay, and Galadriel's trying to get the rings from Elrond, and they get to Gil-galad, and Galadriel's trying to explain about the rings. So they get to Gil-galad, and he starts talking to Galadriel about who Halbrand is. Like, who is he really? She kind of beats around the bush. Oh, he's not a man, yada, yada, yada. Finally says, okay, he's Sauron. So Gil-galad and them are kind of like, oh, great. So that's awesome. And the discussion of the Elven rings comes up, where Galadriel is kind of like, hey, we should use these, and Gil-galad, kind of the same thing. They're untouched by Sauron. Well, Elrond doesn't know that. Elrond's unsure if the cunning of Sauron has influenced them in some way. And so Gil-galad's concern is that, well, if we don't use these rings, we're going to have to leave Middle Earth. We're dying here. Our lands are falling apart, whatever. Okay, we need the rings for the magic to save our people and all this stuff. So Elrond disobeys the order from Gil-galad and jumps off the waterfall so he can get away and not give these rings to Gil-galad. Sorry, I know I've kind of pronounced Gil-galad. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. I usually call him Gil-galad, so you'll probably hear that the most, but that's a side note. A thing I want to say too before we move on. So I had this problem with the first season, and I have this problem with the season 2 so far. I hate the designs of pretty much all the characters, but I hate the design, like the armor. The outfits of the elves look ridiculous. They look ridiculous to me. Some of you guys might really like it and thinks it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. I think it's horrible. Okay, these elves look ridiculous. The one thing with Gil-galad too that looks really weird is his little haircut sideburn thing is the weirdest haircut, like the weirdest trim I think I've ever seen. It's so weird. Anyways, that's a side thing, but it's just really, really weird. So anyway, so then it cuts after, Elrond jumps off the waterfall back over to Mordor, where the Southland men, they're being brought forward to Adar to pledge allegiance. One guy gets very brutally stabbed because I don't even know if they give him a chance to kneel. I don't even know. I think they just immediately take him out. But then it gets to Halbrand, and Halbrand's basically like, hey, I think I know who this Sauron is. If you let me go, I'll tell you, or you let my people go. He acts like Moses, basically. Let my people go. And Adar, he kind of talks about Sauron, and Adar's like, hey, if you don't talk, I'm going to slit your throat. To where Halbrand's like, well, then you won't know anything that I know. And so they throw him in the dungeons, basically, and I forget the name of the guy, but kind of this taskmaster for Adar kind of beats him up a little bit. Basically, Sauron ends up befriending a warg, which I will say the warg still doesn't look great, but the warg definitely looks better than the warg that was in season 1, but still looks a bit off. Basically befriends the warg, uses some black speech, and kind of gets the warg to obey him, or at least like him. So I'm pretty sure I jumped ahead a little bit with the warg stuff befriending them, but that's okay. We'll talk about it here because it all kind of runs together. But anyways, after he gets thrown in the little prison thing, Sauron, I mean, it kind of jumps to our lovely wizard friend and the Harfoot, who they're kind of wandering in the desert, getting to Rune, and they're kind of going in circles. Wizard blows up a tree, bugs come out, they eat the bugs. Hey, we're saved, we have food now. And he ends up having a vision of like a staff. They're following these stars and like the wizard staff he sees. And, he's kind of remembering some things and assumingly probably being led to this staff of power, I'd imagine. And I don't know if it was confirmed if he's supposed to be Gandalf or one of the blue wizards. It makes more sense that he's one of the blue wizards. From what I've seen, that's my bet, that he's a blue wizard. I don't know if they've given him a name yet or not. I don't know. I think he was like the stranger or something in the first season, but I'm not sure if they've given a name or not. Okay, so then like how I jumped forward a little bit, right, with befriending the warg, the taskmaster guy, Sauron, again, says like, hey, once I get released from here, I'm going to unalive you, as the cool kids say. And so, they laugh at that, whatever. He befriends the warg. Then it jumps again to Lindon, or the Grey Havens, which the set piece is nice of the Grey Havens. It does not look as good as Lord of the Rings. Okay, I'll just tell you that. I do not like it as much as I liked Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings depiction of the Grey Havens. I think it kind of looks pretty bad, actually. On the technical side, it looks good, I guess, but I don't like the way they designed it at all. There's really not much there. Kind of lame, if I'm being honest. But anyway, so we have Círdan, who is there, the shipwright, and Círdan actually looks good. I will say this. Círdan actually looks good. He's kind of how I would picture him, and I think, at least as far as his hair and everything, kind of looks like an older, he's an old elf, right? He's like one of the oldest, if not the oldest elf. I'm pretty sure he's like the oldest elf living. He's the only elf that has a beard. He's so old. So really cool. I think the little bit that he had, he did good. But anyways, here's there. Elrond shows up because he doesn't know who else to turn to, and convinces Círdan to destroy these rings, and Círdan's gonna go take it out into the middle of, I forget what the name of it's they call it, but some trench that's so deep, and he's gonna throw the rings in there. So Galadriel and Gil-galad show up with a bunch of elves, and Galadriel's like, hey, let me see if I can convince Elrond one more time to give us the rings before you take him. So she goes and talks to him. It's revealed that Círdan has already taken the rings and is going to destroy them. Okay, so then we jump back to our friendly wizard and the Harfoot, which I don't care about the Harfoots. I still don't know why they're a part of this show, but that's old news, right? So they're wandering. I forget, Poppy, I think. It's like Nori and Poppy. Poppy shows up. They think they're being followed, which I guess they are. So they get Poppy, and now she joins the group. And they go over this map, and they kind of realize how to get out of, well, she kind of figures it out. She shows up, figures out how they get out of going in circles and find where they're supposed to go. And finally enter the land of Rhûn. Okay, so then it goes back to Círdan. He's out in the ocean. He's about to drop these rings into the ocean, and like a wave hits the boat, or something hits the boat. I think it's just a wave, and it knocks the bag of rings into the ship. And he decides to pick them up then, and feels the need to examine them, probably because the sea's always right, you know what I mean? And so he's got to, even that's a Númenórean thing, right? But he picks up the rings. It looks like he's dumping them out of his hands to examine them. So then we jump back to Halbrand, aka Sauron, and Adar, who basically Halbrand convinces Adar, hey, I have it in with the elves. I can convince them. We can find Sauron and destroy him. And basically leads you in that he's pretending to swear fealty to Adar. Well, he says the Lord of Mordor, swears his fealty. And so he goes on his merry way. And the Taskmaster, who he alludes to is going to be unalived when he gets released, ends up getting eaten by the warg, because Sauron basically like lets him out of his collar or the cage and eats him off screen, right? You can hear kind of the screams and stuff. So gets a little bit of revenge there, kept his word there. So then we get to a part that makes me laugh every time. So of course, they have to make sure that they get their diversity and inclusion. Okay, we got to make sure we have elves of all kinds. Okay, because, they're all one race, so we have to make them all look very, very different. Like, this is what irritates me about not just Rings of Power, but entertainment, like, especially when it comes to fantasy, is they don't care about world building or anything. Like, for me, and we're going to take a brief second to talk about this, and this goes back to the beginning of the video where I'm saying, like, I'm going to talk about that in this episode, and I'm most likely going to leave it alone in the rest of the episodes that I watch. We're going to tackle it here. Give my opinion on it, whether you like it or not. Okay. I do not like when people do unnecessary race swaps, gender swaps for no reason other than to check a box. Okay. There is not a logical reason why, like you're seeing on screen, this is a race, correct? Why do they all look so different? Tell me the logical reason in the explanation of that. They're all a race and they all look so different. Like what's the story behind that? Because from my understanding, if you're of the same race, you probably look very similar. And for me, the reason I have an issue with it is it takes me out. One of the problems I have with this show is it feels like I'm watching cosplayers doing some fan film YouTube Comic-Con thing. It doesn't feel real. And obviously they're all actors. They're playing pretend, right? Obviously. But what sets like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings apart, for example, is you feel like that's a real world. You believe those characters. You believe the elves are elves. You believe that the men are men. Here, The elves and men, there's no difference. There's no difference. They just slap some pointy ears on and say, hey, you're an elf. Okay, you can be elves, you can be human, you can be dwarfs. You're going to be black, white, Asian, this, black, white. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just takes me out of the world. It feels like I'm not in a world that has their own races and distinct features. It's like, who cares? Just slap some ears on. We got to make sure we check our boxes. So that's here, right? Obviously, it's here. Okay, the first season it was there, so it's no surprise it's going to be here. But that's my little tangent on that. But anyways, the part that I did like in this scene is I actually like Gil-galad's song. He's singing in Elvish about like everything dying, you know, and it's actually a really nice song. I actually really do enjoy it. Again, the elven armor, all the stuff they're wearing, they all look like garbage. Okay, I don't mean to be mean, but they all look like garbage. So they start singing. Well, then Círdan shows up. Or sorry, when Gil-galad's finished singing, Círdan shows up and presents the rings. Okay, so they all put the rings on, like skadoosh, magic. Everything turns back to being healthy and looks really nice and pretty, which I don't think that's how it works. I understand that the rings gave power to the elves. It did do some stuff, but I don't think it's like, oh, we have to all three be wearing these rings for our lands to be prosperous and beautiful. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I mean, Círdan later gives the ring to Gandalf, not in this episode, obviously, but in the lore. So it's not like all the elves have to have them. But anyways, just a little thing there. But anyways, everything turns really nice and pretty. And then it jumps back to Celebrimbor in Eregion, and Halbrand shows up and basically gets let into the castle or the area, whatever you want to call it. And again, the elven guards don't look great at all. Okay, in fact, it's funny, you have two guards. One's, if memory serves correctly, you have one white elf, one black elf. They're supposed to be the same race, look completely different. Takes me out of it. Again, the armor they're wearing also looks like trash. So it looks pathetic. But anyways, that's basically the end of the episode. It basically ends there. And again, I haven't seen episode 2 or 3. So I don't know what it's going to be in episode 2 or 3. I'm going to watch that later. Probably post episode 2, just talking about what I saw, you know, all the scenes that I want to talk about, kind of do a quick rundown. And the same thing with episode 3, obviously. So did I like this episode? Like I said in the beginning, no, I did not. I think this episode, just like the first season, they have really nice looking big set pieces. You know, the kingdoms, the world, they look nice. Okay. Are they designed the way that I would like to see it? Not always, but they look nice there. Okay. I think the actor for Adar in this is actually better than, I forget his name, but the other actor that played Adar in season 1, I actually think he does a pretty good job. I really do not like that they make Halbrand, well, I shouldn't say Halbrand, they make Sauron a little weak bitch. Okay. Now I get some of people, well, he's trying to deceive them and he's trying to do this. No, they're making him sympathetic of this, like, I'm trying to do good. Maybe it is all deception. Okay. I don't think so. I think he's actually feeling remorse or feeling some type of, you know, he's going through some things. Okay. He's going through a process. But like in the very beginning, right, where the orcs attack him, I'm like, I don't buy that. I think the orcs would be too scared to attack Sauron. I don't buy that at all, that these orcs would try and fight Sauron and take him on. Okay, this is past the first age, right? Sauron's been fighting. Okay, I don't think, and they all know, they should know, he's a lieutenant of Morgoth. I don't think they're fighting him. I don't buy it. I don't think they're going to try to assassinate him. I do not buy it. I don't like the little sludge symbiote thing of like how he's gaining another body. He just like basically becomes venom. Really, really weird. I did not like that. Again, I feel like a lot of the episode I was expecting Sauron to do something like powerful, especially in Mordor, like with the orcs and stuff. Like I was expecting him to do something great. I feel like Sauron could easily just like obviously break out of his chains, bring everybody to kneel before him and just be done with it. Like I don't see the reason why Sauron has to try and deceive Adar and the orcs. That doesn't make sense to me. Like maybe I'm missing something in the lore, but I don't think Sauron even at this point is some like weak dude that just like you have to convince the orcs to serve you. Like, I think you demand that they serve you, and they're going to. Like, I don't buy that. I also found it weird, again, with the rings, that Elrond is trying to destroy the rings, Círdan's trying to destroy the rings, and then I always thought the elves, they already know that they were untouched by Sauron, and that's why they used them. I am pretty sure Elrond did not go on some weird spree to try and destroy them, and then all of this stuff. I felt that was weird too. Like, I thought they knew that the elven rings were untouched by Sauron. And I know there's a lot of lore with that too. I'm not too familiar with it, but that part was weird to me as well. The stuff with the wizard, I thought was okay. Nothing really too good or bad. Again, I don't know why the Harfoots are here. I don't really care for the Harfoots. I think they look really weird. I don't really care for them at all. They're just wandering out in the desert. Yeah, there's not really much. Basically, the whole thing, if I was to summarize, it's sympathy story for Sauron. Hey, we have these rings. We think they're bad. We tried to destroy them. Never mind. We saved our elven people. And the end. So that's basically it. So sympathy for Sauron. Rings are bad. Nope, now rings are good. Everything's saved. And Sauron infiltrates or goes back to Eregion with Celebrimbor. And that's the end of episode 1, basically. So wasn't a big fan. Didn't like it. Obviously, there were some designs like Círdan I liked. I thought Círdan looked pretty decent. I actually even didn't mind the wizard in this one. And Adar was probably like the best. Oh, and I think some of the orcs look pretty good. Some of them look weird, but I think overall the orcs are pretty well designed. The elves look like trash. I said that in season 1. I not on channel because I didn't do any reviews or impressions on season 1. But for me, here, saying it on YouTube for this, they look like trash. Like, especially when you see like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings and the elves look so good, and then you look at this and you're like, what the hell am I looking at? I wouldn't even guess that these were elves, honestly. Like, if you just showed me their armor, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, this could be anybody except for dwarves, right? But we didn't see any dwarves in this episode, so. But no, this was kind of a long one. Like I said, this was pretty casual. I'm just kind of talking. I'll put in the title that there's just going to be spoilers in this. So I know I didn't say here, but this should be obvious that there's going to be spoilers with stuff like this. But let me know what you guys think. Honestly, like, a lot of you guys could probably disagree with everything I said and call me this, call me that. And some of you may agree, but I think overall, like, I would never watch this episode again. Same thing with pretty much everything in season 1. So we'll see with season 2 or season 3. Like, there might be some cool stuff with those episodes. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you even watching season 2? Or are you one of the vast majority that didn't finish season 1 like myself? And let me know what you guys think. So honestly, like, we can have a discussion about it. Like I said, maybe some of you guys can tell me some of the lore stuff that I don't know, of what some of this is based on, or if all this is a bunch of hocus pocus and isn't even in Tolkien's writings at all. Which that should be obvious with even the season 1. Like, I'm pretty sure they don't have the rights to a lot of stuff. So it makes sense that they're just trying to write a story, but it's not going well for me. But anyways, that's my not so much review, but just my thoughts on episode 1 of season 2. But let me know what you guys think. Right now, it's not off to a good start, and at this rate, if each episode is like this, episode 3 might be my last episode that I watch of this show. So anyways, thank you guys. If you guys stuck around to this point in the video, really do appreciate it. Most people don't in my videos, but that's okay. But if you did stick around to this point, I really do appreciate it. Please, please, please let me know in the comments what you think. I'll try my best to respond if I can, and I will see you guys on the next one.